emphatic. I mean, many people said NDC was going to win. Pollsters said NDC was going to win. But, I mean, nobody really anticipated the quantum.
Seismic.
The huge margin that the NDC gave the NPP. What did the trick? Of course, Bawumia said in the subsequent meeting with people that they gave the power out. Of course, we say that governments lose power. The positions really don't win power. What's your thinking around that? And what made a trick for the NDC? Such an emphatic victory.
Well, I must commend Dr. Kisi. I'm not surprised, though. He's always tried to be very forthright and open-minded when it comes to discussions of this nature. And he has not disappointed this morning, speaking his mind and pointing to some of the pitfalls that the party ignored, which led to the heavy defeat, the heaviest any party has ever suffered in the Fourth Republic. I must, however, start by extending my heartfelt appreciations to everybody who especially took part in the electoral process this year, and especially to the very good people of the Tamale North constituency who once again have renewed my mandate for the third term to represent them in Parliament. I do not take the confidence reposed in me lightly. I remain eternally grateful for the support, the prayers, and the encouragement that I've always received from the very good people of the constituency, the chiefs, the malams, the imams, the women especially, the young men and ladies. I do not take their support for granted, and it's
the
my
bad
prayer.
Ones.
Everybody. I mean, it's. I do not take their support for granted. I pray that the Almighty Allah will give us the presence of mind and the discernment to continue to lead in a way that will be appreciated by them and to provide the necessary development that our constituency requires. I mean, the Tamale North constituency over the years has suffered a lot of neglect, even when the NDC was winning. It's an interesting constituency. It is called Tamale North, but it is in the Sanargo district. And you have Sanargo constituency. So in the past, even when the NDC was in power, we had a member of parliament from 2009 to 2012 who was quite elderly and respected in the party, playing various roles. I think at the time he was the chairman of the Gapoha Ports and Harbors, and he did his best, for the constituency. But you notice that often many opportunities in government, when extended to the Sanargo district, went automatically to the MP for Sanargo. Because many didn't know that Tamale North was under Sanargo district. And so appointments, opportunities from the central always went there. And so the constituency suffered that neglect, because you have Tamale Metro, which has Tamale South and Tamale Central, and so when opportunities go to Tamale Metro and Tamale North goes there, they tell them that you're at Sanargo. But so
wrong address.
Yeah, so but I am praying that the God Almighty will help us this time around to do what the people deserve in the Tamale North constituency. I want to also thank everybody who made this victory possible across the country. And you asked what did the trick. I first of all will say that you cannot discount the God factor in this year's election. I mean, we are people of faith. I am a person of faith. And I was telling somebody yesterday that, yes, we worked hard. We prayed hard. We did our very best. We threw in everything we could to win this election. And with our best, many of us were expecting a win. We're expecting, I remember on voting day when I was asked, I predicted a 52% win for President Mahama, because I knew the work we had done. So I'm saying that we worked very hard. We expected a win. But somehow I believe God just wanted to show us that he is in charge.
So angels came to vote.
He is in charge. I mean, so he overwhelmed us with the level of victory that he gave, so that we will recognize that our hard work alone could not have given us the 56%, but his grace is what made it possible. And we cannot, give our gratitude enough. We can't thank God enough. And I will want to take this opportunity to, extend appreciation to all those who lifted His Excellency John Dramani Mahama and the party NDC in prayer, whether publicly or, secretly. We pray that the Almighty Allah will help His Excellency the President to meet their expectations and to govern in a way that they will feel proud that they made those sacrifices. Today, perhaps I'm not in white, unlike my friend Dr. Kisi, because I have started, imagining the overwhelming task ahead of us. I mean, I've been in white in the last couple of days. Yesterday I was in white, but today I just thought that I didn't feel like wearing white, because it is a victory that requires reflection. I mean, the fanfare should be over by now. We need to understand the level of responsibility that has been placed on His Excellency the President's shoulders, and by extension the shoulders of the NDC. The margin of victory, should not let us lose sight of the fact that the expectation is also that high. Yes, the NPP was abysmal in government. Their style of leadership, in many instances provoked people, and I'm sure it is that provocation that has manifested in the endorsement that the NDC got. And people have assigned, this victory in some cases to apathy. But if you look at across the country, the apathy was universal. It did not just affect NPP strongholds. If you went to the NDC strongholds also, you experienced the same apathy. Voter turnouts in the Volta region, in the northern region, even in Greater Accra, was not at the levels that we experienced in 2020. And you cannot say that those who didn't turn up were necessarily NPP voters. So I'm sure that even if the voter apathy was high, perhaps you would have had a higher, margin of victory. But I think that it was just a lesson, not only to the NPP, but to even the NDC, that if we come into office and we play, as we say on the street, the fool, we are going to also experience, a similar backlash from the people. And that is why we all have to begin to reflect on the decision of the people that has given us this margin, and carry ourselves in ways that will meet the expectations of the generality of Ghanaians. For example, people want those of us given power and authority to be humble. They want us not to just speak of it, but to manifest it in our ways and in our decisions. They will expect us to be forthright and honest. Because you see, the people are not zombies. They live in the communities and they know the truth about, governance, and they know the truth about the trajectory of the country. And so when things are not going well, they will expect us to be that humble enough to be honest to them and not try to create a narrative and push it down their throat. They will want us to respect their intelligence and tell them when things are difficult, that they indeed are difficult, and perhaps give an assurance of how we are working to ameliorate those difficulties.
The outgoing government didn't do that? We heard a lot of things, that the system is, the economy is hard, we are working at it and all of that. We heard all of that.
Well, you see, people know half-hearted, if you like, confessions of hardship. I mean, when you tell me that the system is hard, but you are not responsible, and I know you are responsible, it becomes difficult for me to take that truth. I mean, for example, Dr. Admakisi was talking about the finance minister and how about 90 of them came out to call on the president to dismiss the finance minister. At what point in time did anybody in government, apart from the 90, admit that the management at the finance ministry was hugely responsible for the crisis that we were facing? We were often told that the hardship was because of Russia and Ukraine, and that despite Russia and Ukraine and COVID, they were still doing magic.
But what should they say? That we're not doing well even before Russia-Ukraine came?
Exactly. I mean, the figures showed that we had overborrowed even before Russia.
But our growth rate looked
COVID.
good. The growth rate looked good. Inflation rates were
no,
good.
Our growth rate,
our
our growth rate was stable. It didn't look good. And even as the growth rate was stable, our indebtedness was growing and getting to choking levels. And the warning signs were already clear that the stable growth was not sustainable as a result of the increase in debts. And debts that did not go into, if you like, investments that could yield further growth. So you had a stable growth, but you were borrowing so much, and you were not putting the borrowing in areas that will support the stable growth. So clearly, the risk was there, and all financial watchers had predicted that we were not heading in the right direction, even before COVID and before Russia-Ukraine. That's what I'm saying. But at no point did the government admit to this obvious fact that was known to many economic watchers. At every point in time, they tried to push us to accept the Russia, Ukraine, and COVID narrative. And even when COVID, came, it turned out to be a financial or economic blessing to Ghana. I mean, if you are looking at the numbers, look at the Auditor General's report and how much was mismanaged in the name of fighting COVID. And clearly, you can see that the narrative that COVID and Russia, Ukraine were responsible for our crisis was not tenable and could not be accepted by the Ghanaian people. And I think that is what all of us in this space of leadership must learn. That the people know the truth, and sometimes all they expect from us is to admit to those truths and perhaps point to honest ways of getting out of a bad situation when we find ourselves. I think that my honorable colleague also made a very important point about money in our politics. It is something that we all have to watch.
You agree to the average of 10 million cedis candidates?
Absolutely. I agree. And I think that he's even been very moderate. I mean, especially when he said that when he took it from primaries to the general elections, a figure of 10 million Ghana cedis it's been very, very moderate. I think so. Yeah. So that's fair. I think that first of all, I have always held the view that campaign of every sort is expensive. It doesn't matter if it is a political campaign or a non-political campaign. And I've often said that even campaigns in churches, Christmas is around the corner, and churches are going to mount all sorts of campaigns, watch night, crossovers. They're expensive to run. TV stations do all kinds of campaigns. Situation that I know that you are advertising is going to cost you money. But yes, at the end of the day, you are expecting a certain return. So campaigns of every sort, political or non-political, are usually expensive. But the problem is with where the expenditure goes. What do you spend on? Where money becomes a problem in our politics is when it is used to buy people's conscience, when it is used to influence people's decisions unfairly. That is where it becomes worrisome. For example, you have candidates, campaigning with ballot sample papers and money under it. What is that for? Or they give a party t-shirt and 100 Ghana cedis in it. What is that for? really, or they are packaging Maggi cubes and they are packaging what do we call it, 1,000, and they are distributing it in the various constituencies. I mean, I experienced that in my constituency, where my opponent will go on door to door and sharing 50 Ghana cedis, 20 Ghana cedis. It was so appalling that, you know, my team, and you see, one of the ways that you can measure the credibility of a candidate, it's the candidate's ability to raise funds. You know, my team knew that I had that credibility to raise the funds to do a similar thing. But I insisted that we were not going to do that, because I cannot celebrate a victory that I feel is purchased or bought. You know, I will rather, you know, have people vote for me or against me based on the, you know, developmental projects and programs that I have championed, which have either met their expectations or not. I will feel better about that, you know. And sometimes it takes a lot of self-restraint not to also get tempted to do some of these things. And I'm saying that we all must watch it. We all must watch that unholy use of money in our politics. You cannot run a campaign without money. That's what I said earlier. But it must be applied, you know, to very relevant areas. For example, you are organizing a health walk, and you will need to have some first aid medicines available. You will need to have some water and refreshment available for those who will join the health walk. You will need to have maybe fuel available to support some vehicles that will take part in the health walk. All of this will cost money. You will need to have money to place adverts, you know, for people to join that health walk. All of that costs money. You will need perhaps a stage to be mounted at the end of the health walk. You will need to have a sound system that will address people at the end of the... So these photography. You will need photography. These are the areas when you spend in my view, that is reasonable. I mean, but when you go onto the ground and you are distributing raw cash, I mean, it is an insult, first of all, to the voter. And I am very, very excited that the people of Ghana, by and large, in this particular election, rejected that kind of politicking. Because like my colleague was saying, if you go on TikTok, you find people who receive these items, displaying them and still confessing, you know, how their voting pattern, you know, did not go along with the expectations of those who gave them these items. And I think if we continue like that, we will send a very strong signal to our politicians that our votes will be based on our fair assessment of how they have performed to transform our country and our communities, and not how much they give us days to or a few days to an election. And so this victory, yes, it's a heavy defeat. 1.6 million, vote difference between the NDC and NPP against the NPP. It's a heavy defeat, but it's also a big lesson, not only to the NPP, but also to us, the NDC, who are in power today, to
who get into power.
Yes, who will get into power after we are sworn into office on January 7th, to be guided by what has led to this big defeat of the NPP. And I'm very confident that many of us are alive to this reality and will be guided by the principle of fairness, honesty, humility, and also focus on the transformation of our country and our communities.
Look, so